Welcome to K2's Personally Speaking podcast, a series that shines a light inside a highly successful global mobility organization, with human centricity at the heart of everything. Each episode takes a look inside K2 and toward the people behind the business, the brand, and the success of the Because It's Personal ethos. Global Marketing Director James Marshall is joined on each episode by colleagues from around the globe to discuss their roles, their background, special projects, and to find out what they bring to deliver a truly unique service to clients, relocating families, and business service partners.
Hello, mate.
Hi, James.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I'm joined by Eric. Eric, you're normally in our Houston office, but you've joined us over in the UK for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
We won't go into detail.
Thanks so much. Let's just leave that alone for the time.
So look, the podcast today is really to talk a little bit about you, your role at K2, your role with our clients, and we'll talk about some specific experiences, I hope, and a little bit about the emergence of technology in our sort of service offering, what you've seen over the years and what we're seeing come through and what's beneficial and all of that sort of stuff. So 20 years you've been in mobility. Where did it all begin? In fact, hang on. What I've got on my notes. 20 years in mobility, 12 years at K2, climbed Kilimanjaro.
I did, yeah, by myself.
And all on my lonesome. And trekked across Nepal.
Well, that was Everest Base Camp. Let's not undercook it.
Yeah, well, no, I was deliberately undercooking it because I'd already gone with 2012 and Kilimanjaro. So, yeah, okay. We're going to talk about them in a minute.
I'm a mountaineer. I don't really work in mobility.
that's just a cover story.
Yeah.
That's just a means to an end.
For sure.
So where did it begin?
It started at Allied, Pickford's, back 20 odd years ago. I got a job as a household goods surveyor.
Okay.
So I used to go around people's homes who were moving privately or internationally.
Measuring up all of their stuff.
Attempting to.
Okay, that sounds ominous. It sounds like you were doing it and then someone moved into a 3-bed house or something with only half their stuff.
Yeah, I had good days and bad days for sure, and quickly found.
Can we just clarify that doesn't happen? That doesn't.
No, we have professional surveyors who use all this lovely.
No,
tech
but I mean in your working life as well. You generally now.
I definitely do. Go out and do surveys now for sure. I'm much more about the management of QCs and high valued employees that are relocating. So being on site then is my thing. Yeah.
So you started K2 12 years ago?
Yes.
Tell me about that. Did I read rightly in your human library, you met Phil and Nick?
I met Phil.
Okay.
This goes back a long way now. So in my human library, it went back to 2005, 2006 when I first met Richard.
Oh, Richard Rutledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then met Nick afterwards.
Okay.
And we discussed Eric coming to work for them.
Mm-hmm. And in what capacity did you meet them? Were they a client or were you providing services?
No. I was a competitor. I worked at another relocation company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So used to bump into Richard on the circuit. We knew a lot of mobility HR folk that were the same.
Yeah.
Most of them used to be my clients.
And Richard's trying to get them?
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant. And then he thought, I've got an easy way of doing this.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric, come and work for K2.
And then Phil and I go back 20 odd years.
So you knew Phil before K2?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You knew he was at K2 though? Or was that a happy surprise?
No. It wasn't a happy surprise. In 2012, Phil messaged me. We hadn't seen each other for a few years. And I'd got to a time in my career where I was at a real crossroads, and I was thinking about what my next step is, what my next career path is.
Were you a bit bored, or?
Yeah, a little bit. The business had changed a lot, and I wasn't working with truly global clients delivering end-to-end mobility solutions. Mm-hmm. And Phil happened to reach out at the right time. As timing is everything, as people say.
Yeah, right. And then, so you did 7 years in the UK, and then you made the move to the US.
Yes.
To Houston, direct to Houston.
Direct to Houston, yeah, which was a big sell, to be honest.
What was? I personally can think of so many reasons why you would want to do that, but what was it for you that really? And you're not allowed to mention weather, right? Embargo on weather.
Okay.
So what were the reasons that you wanted to go to? Either was it Houston specifically, or was it US?
It was US specifically.
Okay.
Houston this is going out, isn't it? So I have to be careful with what I'm going to say. It's a beautiful place. As Phil says, it's the worst place to visit, but the best place to live. And it's grown on me over the last 4 and a bit years, for sure.
Yeah.
I'd spent a lot of time in the US previously. Been fortunate enough to work in Boston and Chicago for a previous employer. With K2, I started to go to the US in 2015 to work on, with some clients, presentations, assisting the really small US team that we used to have there. And then, 2017 and 2018, I was backwards and forwards in and out of the US for, every few months.
Where's your favourite city?
That's probably changed over the years for sure. I would have said, many years ago, San Fran.
Same.
Yeah, because
but then I went there like 6 months ago, and I'm like, that's gone.
It's got a lot better.
Down.
I'm lucky. The US is a huge country, so it's not like being back in London where you can get a train from London to Guildford and you're there in 30 minutes. Yeah, sure. Everywhere in the States is you have to get on a flight.
Yeah.
Just to let our compliance team know that I get the least CO2 official ones.
That's it.
Just to please
the
them.
least CO2, right? Good to know. Yeah.
On my transit,
no luggage.
I get the bad. No luggage at all. No,
just
my little MacBook, and that's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Good.
And now I don't know. Now it's difficult. Obviously, again, fortunate with one of the clients that I'm working with. I might have spent quite a bit of time in Miami.
Yeah.
I think we met there once.
We did.
Yeah, and had a good time.
Yeah.
I love parts of Miami.
You also sent me lots of photos of the Miami Grand Prix as well, which I was most appreciative of.
Yeah.
Looked like a tough day's work, that did.
It was networking, James.
Yeah,
networking,
I get that.
Flying the K2 flag. So, I don't know. I probably wouldn't say there's a favourite place.
New York? New York's got to be out there.
New York's cool, yeah. So, I worked with the client again on the other side in Hoboken.
Okay.
So you got stunning views of the city. It's much more peaceful there.
It is, isn't it?
The States is like being in Europe with 50 different countries.
Yeah.
Because every single state is culturally different and diverse. So it's a great country to work in. It's an amazing country to live in.
Have you done any road trips throughout the US yet?
I've done a few. Yes, I did the Pacific Highway last year.
Yeah.
So drove from San Fran down to LA, not long enough, but got to see some amazing sights. My boys, come over for summer holidays, so we did the Grand Canyon one year,
great,
and then parts of Arizona with the meteor craters and things like that.
Yeah.
Then probably one of the trips of a lifetime was Alaska.
Yeah, you did that in the summer, right?
This year, which was phenomenal. I thought when I was lucky enough to go to the Himalayas this time last year, and I honestly thought that was probably one of the last unspoiled parts of the world I'd ever get to see.
Okay.
And then going to the Himalayas and seeing Alaska and seeing that being unspoiled was phenomenal.
And actually quite a contrast to the sort of very commercial way of life in the US, I guess.
Completely, yeah. Seeing small little towns and, villages and how people live, like they used to generations ago is, really good to see.
Anything you miss in UK? Premier League?
No, because it's wall-to-wall football there. Oh, sorry, soccer, I should say.
Or football, if you're watching NFL.
Yeah, for sure, which, grows on you, but it's a good game to watch. What do I miss? Some foods, like some of the British traditional foods and things like that. Maybe the pub culture.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's very different, isn't it?
And I suppose living in Houston, one thing I miss most days of my life is walking. So, like we're here in Guildford today, it's a town that you can walk around. Obviously, I've worked in London. That's a phenomenal city to walk around and really easy to get around. Houston is, everything's drivable.
It's drivable,
yeah.
So thinking about all of that stuff and your experience with the move and your like that cultural shift that you wanted to do and you've embraced it, but do you find when you're talking to clients and maybe when they're talking about, or when you're talking to assignees as well, that you are sort of able to tap into some of those experiences, feelings that you've had along the way to kind of sympathize and assimilate with what they're going through?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a real gift of having to relocate yourself.
Yeah.
I did get support, so it wasn't all just me.
Yeah.
I did use, some professionals. But having that experience of, first of all, going through the visa appointment and what sort of things you need to talk about, getting a social security, and how long that will take and what the best places are to go and do that. Can you do it online? Is it on person? How to set up a bank account? How you get a US driving license? How you take your driving test? That all became super, important for me to be able to talk to people, especially during the pandemic years, because there was delays everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
So to see how processes had changed, especially for like social security and, the red tape, which was around bank accounts and things like that. And especially US travel, because there were so many bans on various different visa types on when you could come into the country during those years as well.
Couldn't. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. And I'm guessing, I know a big part of the US business is US domestic as well, which you and I have worked on an account there together, and I know that was my first experience of really understanding. You say that it's like 50 countries, of Europe, like culturally the difference between Houston, Texas, or California or East Coast.
Yeah,
it's wild. It's
really
it's the same country, but like that's where it starts and stops.
Yeah.
It's so culturally
They all speak
different.
the same language. They've got slightly different accents, but it is culturally different from each state that you go to.
Yeah, it is crazy. It really is. And I guess your travel around as well is, you'd think, okay, I've got some individuals moving to Miami from New York or San Francisco, wherever. There's quite a lot of prep work that goes into it. I'm not talking about the sort of arbitrary prep work of purchasing and selling a house or moving cars and stuff. Like mental awareness, cultural awareness of those differences that you're going to experience with climate, being one of them, and I guess, and then just ways of working.
And the ways of life as well. Yeah. It's a lot slower pace down in Florida than it will be living in one of the bigger cities.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah,
and it was also seen
in California.
Yeah, and it was also seen like almost like a holiday destination rather than a business center.
Yeah. I mean, the Miami project that we refer to, right? It, I remember when it first got brought up, and it was like the brief for us to communicate it was, this is not a holiday destination. This is now and is going to be, and is fast becoming a hub of business. Yeah. Whether it be financial services, technology, pharmaceuticals, everything, right?
It's going to have everything there, like in the next 24 months.
And the amount of construction going on there is crazy. Yeah. It's just, it feels like one big construction site, but they're constructing some cool buildings.
Yeah, very, very cool building. Yeah. It's a bit like, I haven't been back to London for 8 months in this trip, and just seeing the way that London's changed in those 8 months. It's seen some of the new amazing buildings right in like the Square Mile. It's just phenomenal. How quickly
so it's like we rehearsed this. The world is changing.
Yeah. Wow.
Visually as well as culturally, I guess.
Yeah, very much.
We're seeing we're K2 are always have done, but I think are amping up investment in technology.
Very much so, yeah.
Aside from the obvious ongoing investment with regard to InfoSec and making sure that our assignees and clients' data is secure and in the right place and is handled correctly internally within the business. From a process side of things, a lot of our technology solutions that we talk about are very much the foundation of them is designed around how can we reduce noise, improve processes, therefore reduce time input, whilst always maintaining human interaction. Yeah. So no sort of replacement of humans for automation.
No chatbots or no AI and things like that. So what's going to enhance the experience that we're already delivering globally by bringing in the various pieces of technology that we've seen over the past couple of years.
So my question is, what do you see? Like, I'm fascinated to understand what are clients saying about this. So clients asking questions. Are we going to clients saying we've got this, and they're going, oh, thank goodness, or are they saying we've seen this, or does this work? What are you seeing come out of clients?
I think it's more of what's possible. What are we seeing in the marketplace? What our competitors are doing, and how we can improve, mobility's experience, where they can access download reports themselves.
Yeah.
What can we do to enhance the employee experience through using technology? And how we bring that to life in a meaningful way. Like I could go back 20 years when technology was first being talked about in mobility, and you'd go into, a client presentation, whether that's existing client or an RFP pitch, good, best and final, and they'd be like, we want our employees to access a system. And back then it was like an intranet site, and you'd be able to go in and get basic data about the destination you're moving to, you'd be able to track bits and pieces of your move.
Okay.
And then you successfully.
And did they actually use it?
Oh, no. It was like
that's my biggest question.
You'd see the metrics and you go back to the client.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a very, very good relationship with that client to say that we built this for you. And just to let you know, 0.4% of your population have accessed it.
Yeah.
Because they'd rather talk to somebody.
Yeah. And I guess, some of the projects that we've worked on, the Miami project as an example, it's really important to communicate the solution there as well. Like, this tool is here as an opportunity for you to use. And if that's sometimes misplaced as well, there's no awareness of it. Yeah,
I think like the app that we've worked, heavily with one of our partners with, and we've had a lot of inbuilt design. And I'm going to give you some more work to do on that as well with some of your videos and bits and pieces. That's great. Because they can access it early on in the relocation process. Yeah. So even prior to, I've accepted that assignment, I'm going to wait for a visa. That could take 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer. So I can start to research the destination that I'm going to be relocating to. So you can get amazing information on areas. So individual area guides for each individual borough. So what's the properties like there? What's the schooling district like? Get, intel on all the different schools.
That's self-serve.
Self-serve, yeah.
But I guess then if
still with your K2 relocation manager, it's just giving them, it always brings back, they've got instant messaging with us.
Yeah.
They can diarise a call with us, all through an application, which is really cool.
I mean, we're, if you think about trying to develop software but keeping that human interface, but we are. I said at the beginning of this, I was like, maybe it sounds rehearsed, that culturally the world is changing, but actually the relationship with technology and the relationship with process is changing massively. There's a generation coming through that we're part of, which is this reliance upon an application to support and enhance an experience in some way, shape, or form. And I think that, technology's always been a sort of an engine of internal process for us, releasing it to our clients to improve their, that reduction in noise, and that maintaining that human centricity. That's got to be
that's key. That's really key. Yeah.
Success,
so that's the employee one's really good, and then from a client perspective, our technology team have developed, more stuff in-house through K2 Workspace, and the ability to give, clients access to that so they can run and see, how much Eric Pengelly's relocation cost, and have instant reporting mechanisms.
Yeah.
But also, for next year, the enhancements that yet again we've made to give them, status reporting, instantaneous to see where anybody is in their life cycle of their relocation.
Which is cool, right?
Which is really cool. It saves, our teams a lot of time from producing, Excel reports that you can give clients direct access to see where they are and what service has been delivered on which day.
But then I guess an opportunity to ask questions if they need to.
For sure, yeah. I still got to ask. So, maybe the home search is scheduled for a week's time.
Yeah.
And the mobility team want to know, so which areas are they?
Yeah, fine.
Could it be fine? And what sort of property styles they?
I know that Miami project, a lot of the stuff that you and I worked on, the sort of the conceptualization of it was based upon kind of trend analysis, which is, what are the areas that are trending for families, or what are the areas trending for young professionals, and that really helped us shape our communication, and I guess really helped you build a team on the ground to be educated in these are the important pieces of the puzzle.
The team who work with that client have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
The way that they've grabbed the opportunity. With
Shout out to the Miami team.
Yeah, they've done, phenomenal. They've obviously all had various trips to there to learn about the culture, to, have orientations, to go and see some of the schools and things like that, and visit various different, condos, apartments, and, some people's houses.
And so the last podcast that I sat in this room doing was with Amanda, and we were sort of launching Amanda as our global head of customer experience, CX. My question to you is, we talk a lot about customer service and exceptional quality and maintaining an NPS of 80 and yada, yada. Real terms, real terms every day, what does customer experience mean to you and your team, and how do you ensure that high level of quality is always on the agenda?
Interesting question.
I know,
it's delivering on your promises.
Okay.
It's delivering on what you say you're going to do. It's about having open, honest, and transparent communication. I'm really fortunate in my career, with some of the clients have been very long-term clients. And some of them turn into friends. Yeah. And you can have those really open and honest conversations, which makes things really good on a working relationship. But on the odd occasion something does go wrong, then nobody's going to be pussyfooting around on what they think they're going to do and things like that. You're going to know. And the way that, I manage the clients and my team is talking to our service delivery people is about, open, honest and transparent communication. Everybody makes mistakes. It's about not making the same mistake again and learning from that and giving them coaching and mentoring on that piece.
I always say this to people when I'm in this room, actually. You won't pick it up on camera, but behind the wall it says embrace failure. And that's something I know that Nick, our CEO, was quite insistent on having somewhere in the space.
Yeah, we've got it in Houston as well, and everybody takes notice.
Yeah, it's in the boardroom, right? And it's failure embraced there, right?
Failure embraced,
And it's that for me, that gives me confidence. Yeah, to go. There's an acceptance that if you're pushing and you're challenging and you're innovating, that you might make, that plan might not come off. Learn, adapt, overcome,
and develop what those challenges might have been.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of making mistakes.
And I'm guessing
it might happen
because how many clients do you work with approximately?
So day to day, probably 4 now.
And your team, same 4?
No, it's a mix actually. Okay. So one team just work with one. Yeah. And then varied mix.
But I'm guessing your learnings from client A feed into your activity for B, C, and D, right?
One of the clients that I'm working with now, it took me back when I came on board to work with them to a client I worked with 10 years ago. Different cultures, but similar styles of the way that they would see.
That's interesting.
The way that a partner or a vendor, as they
so your muscle memory kicks in
about you knew what the challenges were there. And a lot of that was around communication style and openness and being transparent. So that kicked in and it helped a lot.
And then do you sort of disseminate that down to your teams?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we talk to the team on a regular basis about if I'm in a review meeting with some of the operational teams and things like that, is they all get the good kudos of what's gone, what the client has said about them, what service scores we're delivering in. And then I'll talk to the operational leads about, if there are any challenges or some, process changes that we might need to make. Or they're looking at their policy because some legislative law has changed.
Or immigration or something like that. Right? Or
for sure.
Ever changing, right?
Yeah.
That's very cool. And have you got any insights as to what you think's coming next for maintaining great CX will still continue to be around transparency and communication, but combining that with how we retain that as technology becomes a little bit more of an emerging piece of the puzzle for our service offering?
Yeah, I think that, with one of the tech projects I'm involved at the moment is that we'll build the bare bones. And and then we'll get the client involved. We showed some to like 10 employees to get their feedback on what they'd like to see in the application. So I think if you can have that 360 conversation, try and put into pieces.
Really
We've worked together for a while, and that I'll come up with some odd ideas and then say to you, can you make this work or make it look pretty? We won't go back onto the bit where we first talked about tech and I pulled out something from the 80s for you to work with.
I think, like, from my perspective, the work that the team and I do around comms and stuff like that is, and I'm sure this must be the same for the technology team, delivering UX and the process and stuff like that. Getting that insight from someone like you that is not, you're not a technologist, you're not a marketeer or a communicator. What you are is someone that gets client needs and requirements and can disseminate that in a K2 way to people that can then take that and do something with it.
Oh no, for sure.
And I wonder whether that is the case for all businesses, or because I know at K2 with that is like sleeves up, get involved.
Yeah. And they've seen the step change in what our tech team have done over the last 6 months because they spent 2 years doing InfoSec, which was the right thing to do because of what we were seeing in our industry. But seeing how quickly they've adapted and pivoted to a different piece.
Hey, and listen, you've not seen the screens that I've seen on our new UX process that we're going through to really drive that, to really take that, the foundation of technology process, it actually working and doing what it needs to do, and then a user experience of not only is it doing exactly what it should do, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, by no means we're perfect on the tech front, but we're making the right changes to get there and bring something into the 22nd century, and then continuing to enhance and develop by talking to your clients and their employees about
that's
what they'd like to see.
Never ending, I imagine, though.
Yeah, it could well be. It could well be. I don't think you've seen that with various different well-known products. I can see 2 on the table just here to see how they've changed.
That's why you get an update release.
Yeah,
and then a hardware release.
Things like
at least
that.
we're not having to deal with hardware releases.
No. I think it will continue. But the eye-opener for me was involving the mobility team, talking to the employees and just hearing about what they'd like to see.
Yeah.
And what they'd like to get out of it, going forward, to make sure it's
if you don't do that,
useful as well.
Yeah,
because it's something that needs to be used, not day in, day out, but it's something you can pick up, in week 1 of your case, and then at the end of share it with the family, and you can talk it all through whilst you're all having dinner, lunch, etc.
Yeah, no, I like it. Like that. Yeah, and of course for us, we have our sort of 2 main brands as well. So K2 Corporate Mobility, K2 Relocation, and K2 Bespoke. And the needs and requirements of those audiences are very, very different.
Yeah, very much so.
And it's making sure that technology has those nuances that work for those different audiences, I think is going to be key as well. It does already, but key from a UX perspective.
Yeah, from a UX perspective, and ensuring that, it just enhances, especially our bespoke service for the phenomenal work that team do around the world.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
that. That was
good
cool.
fun.
Nice break from the norm.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Good.
I'm just looking at the time now. It's my starting day's about to start.
Brilliant.
So off I go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it. Welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.